Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 13, Episode 138. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Friday, Steelers Nation. A very busy, jam-packed episode of the podcast, which is not always the case on June 2nd, but pretty eventful day. It seems like Thursday at OTAs, and a very special interview we'll have in just a little bit on the podcast. So cannot wait for you guys to listen to that. Dave, how you doing?
Doing absolutely fantastic on this Friday. End of the second week of OTAs now. One more week of OTAs, and then the mandatory mini camp, and then the wait begins until training camp gets. I would imagine within next couple of weeks we'll get the training camp schedule. So great day to be alive.
It is, and I want to tease this now, and we've kind of mentioned this, I believe, again, teased it as well at the end of Wednesday's show, but in just a little bit, we'll be joined by longtime Steelers scout Mark Gorsuch, who is stepping down, graduating, as he says, not done with football, but is leaving his post as the longtime, almost 30 years in Pittsburgh as their area scout. So it's about a 40-minute conversation with him, really thankful for his time. Tons of great information about what it's like to be a scout, to work in Pittsburgh, and even a tremendous story on how he became the GM of the AFL Pittsburgh Gladiators in 1987. So really excited for you guys to listen to our conversation with Mark Gorsuch. But Dave, will start things off with the here and now in Pittsburgh, and it was the young corners' day to shine. It seems like during the Thursday OTA practice, Joey Porter Jr. getting first-team reps. Apparently, Cory Trice Jr. had a big day, 3 pass breakups and an interception. And so the young corners turning heads in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and then you mix in a little bit of news about Dan Moore getting some right tackle snaps, and Patrick Peterson getting some work in the slot. I kind of view yesterday's OTA as I don't know. Would it be chicken soup for the Steelers soul, or would it be perfect catnip for the Steelers fan? Yeah, look, I mean, that's the kind of obviously this this time of year. You have to be careful with what comes out of OTAs and take it as it comes and not get overly hyped or too low about things that happen. But certainly some positivity, I think, to come out on Thursday there, especially when it comes to the young cornerbacks and Trice specifically. And it makes you mind. I know my mind raced a little bit yesterday afternoon thinking, man, and obviously it'll be a long time before we know for sure. But, not only if the Steelers could manage to get one solid cornerback out of this class, but what if they got two? That kind of thing there. So it was good to hear those reports, and probably not surprising that a guy like Porter's probably going to get reps in different groups and moving out through the rest of the summer, because you got to get some of these younger kids that you think can contribute as much experience with the starters and the backups as possible to see how they respond. But I just think overall, and it kind of goes back to what we said in the last, I think, couple previous podcasts there. I think when you look in totality at what all has happened with this team throughout the offseason, on into 2 weeks now of OTAs, I mean, there's what is there to complain about? I mean, you really have to be have a nice level of excitement at this point of the offseason here when it comes to the Steelers, and really Thursday's OTA practice, makes it seem like there's a good head of steam going into the final week here.
It is just one day of OTAs, and by the time training camp rolls around, and certainly as you get into preseason, regular season action, you'll forget about what happened on June 1st. But anytime you can maybe hear about those flashes of what a player can do at his best, I mean, I think it's just certainly, noteworthy. And Pittsburgh is all about guys that have ball skills, and for Trice to make plays on the football, even in a, football in shorts and shells setting, is still really encouraging. So it's good to hear about that. And it seems like Porter, it had earned those first team reps, but it also sounded like they're moving Patrick Peterson around some. And Peterson, basically since the moment he signed back in March, has teased the idea of moving around and being versatile and doing some different things that Arizona, Minnesota never allowed him to do. And Peterson saying he moved around yesterday, including playing in the slot. And so we've talked about how that slot cornerback room will look, and Chandon Sullivan getting first crack there last week. It just doesn't feel like Sullivan should be this team's full-time slot corner. And so, how do you get Porter, Peterson, and Wallace on the field all at the same time in sub package? I think the most logical thing, we talked about this a while back, was to move Peterson inside. So they're going to mix and match. Nothing set in stone right now, but that seems to be, potential nickel configuration of having Porter and Wallace on the outside and Peterson playing inside in the slot.
Yeah, and he said, he didn't overly commit to that being what will happen. Basically said, we'll see how they want to do this moving forward here. But the fact that has happened, and Peterson sounded pretty comfortable in doing so. Obviously, he's not new to the slot position overall. He has played some slot throughout his career. Obviously, he's been more of an outside guy, but look, I mean, this is the time to kind of do that stuff, right? Mix and match and see where people are comfortable at, see what different variations you can do. And so, yeah, I think this is just a regular part of the maturation off-season progress, especially when you got a lot of newer guys in the secondary as well there. So we'll just continue to monitor it, and obviously when we get into training camp and you're out there and can start charting more of that stuff in your hieroglyphics, we'll start getting probably a firmer grasp on this overall. But I thought if anybody's on Twitter or whatnot, JJ Watt, I don't know if you saw that little video that JJ Watt put out yesterday on Twitter, and I imagine that was probably mostly directed at either Texans or Cardinals fans. I haven't really been paying attention to what's been going on in those OTA sessions, but in so many words, JJ said, these rookies are going to have good days and bad days, and one video or one rep out of an OTA session might circulate and create either a negative or a positive narrative. More times than not, those are negative narratives. And, I kind of relate that to maybe what happened the other day with Mark Robinson, right? And then really you could probably rubber stamp that to what happened to Cory Trice on Thursday, and both those kind of being positive things there. Although for every positive defensive play, there's probably a negative offensive play that happened there. You just got to go with the ebbs and flows of these things, and not get too high and not get too low. I think the biggest takeaways come when you have somebody with educated eyes there in training camp, such as yourself, and then obviously you get into the preseason games where we all can watch the tape and start forming our opinions. But I thought it was a great welcome to reality kind of video from JJ Watt. So look, I mean, obviously be excited about some of these things that are coming out, but within that, you got to take them with a grain of salt as well too.
Sure, it's a long process, and people have to understand you're not defined by what you do or don't do on one play, one day, or even 1 week. It's where you start, where you finish. Do you show progression? Do you avoid making the same mistake twice? How much can be put on your plate? It's a whole long evaluation process. And granted, for some, it's a shorter time. Some guys, if you're number 90 on the roster, you have a shorter probably time to be evaluated into, hold serve your spot than the guy that's the first round pick. But it's still nice to hear these things to get some sense of what's going on, at least in terms of positionally where guys are aligning to kind of set some sort of framework for myself for training camp. Of course, you don't want to get too high, too low, as you said, on the evaluation stuff, especially right now, but still nice to hear. And we know that a guy like Trice has talent, and he was better than your typical 7th round pick is from a pure talent standpoint. It was the medical that dinged him and caused him to drop. And so when you hear about some of those reports, it kind of affirms that the tape, told you that Trice was better than where he was actually selected.
I'll tell you the scary thing about one of the scarier things that Watt had to say is how some young players won't experiment with pass rush, moves for fear of it being caught on tape and it being a bad rep and circulating that way. Look, I mean, in the age of the internet and social media now, everything's instant, right? We want instant information, and we want to judge that instant information. But and once again, that was probably in response to, I don't know, Texans or Cardinals fans probably overreacting to something that they saw there. But anyway, another thing to come out was Dan Moore Jr. Getting reps at right tackle, and that's obviously not surprising at all. And I don't think one of the more funny quotes to come out of Dan Moore Jr. on Thursday kind of plays into some recent conversations that we've had as well too. Dan Moore Jr. said on his reps at right tackle, it's weird. It's like wiping your butt with the other hand. So we talked about the muscle memory thing and how some guys probably it's an easier transition than other guys for whatever reason. And Dan Moore Jr., since coming into the NFL, I believe has one snap at right tackle. And correct me if I'm wrong, that was a kneel down snap where they were just fooling around with the configurations there. And I think even if you go back to his time at Texas A&M, I don't remember him having many snaps, if any, over. I'll have to go back and look at right tackle there. So you do need to get all of these guys, Chikwama Okorafor, Dan Moore Jr., Broderick Jones, even, God forbid, LaRaven Clark, plenty of time throughout the offseason at both tackle spots.
You do, and it makes the most amount of sense to have Moore start that swing possibility, because I think you want Broderick Jones, who has played some right tackle in the past, but you want him to get as many reps at left tackle as possible to really be able to evaluate him at that left tackle spot, since that's the area, the position he's most directly competing for to start. And for Moore, if you had to move that guy back to left tackle, say late in the summer, let's say he beats out Broderick Jones, he's got the experience there. He's got comfort there. It's going to be a pretty quick transition to go back to left tackle. He'll be spending time at right tackle throughout the summer. And of course, he's probably going to play both. He's going to, get time at both left tackle, right tackle throughout OTAs, throughout the summer, throughout preseason games. But yeah, I think he did a little bit of right tackle early in his A&M career, but then pretty quickly flipped over to left tackle and was their guy there. So he's going to need reps there because it is pretty foreign to him, as he mentioned. And so, he's a guy that, he also played a bit of right tackle his rookie year in training camp with Pittsburgh, because when they thought, Okorafor would be the left tackle, Zach Banner would come back, be the right tackle. And obviously that all, went up in smoke there pretty quickly, but Moore got a couple of snaps there, but certainly you're going to have to cross train him. I just wonder, what happens to Broderick Jones if, let's say, he can't beat out Dan Moore Jr. How many reps at right tackle is Broderick Jones really going to get this summer? I don't know if he's going to get many, some maybe, but I just wonder how that's going to go if Moore is able to keep that starting job.
Looking back here, Dan Moore in 2017 at A&M had 13 snaps at right tackle. All of them came in one game. In 2018, Dan Moore had all of his snaps at left tackle that season. 2019,
dropped the ball with tackle.
All at left tackle. And 2020, just to confirm, all of them at left tackle. So he had 13 career snaps at right tackle at Texas A&M, all in one game.
Right. So I knew he had played a tiny bit there early in his career. Obviously not much. That was probably in-game injury. He's probably not even practicing there. If I had to guess, it's not like he had a full game there. So yeah, very limited amount of snaps. So it's going to be an adjustment for him. But you would think at some point sooner than later, potentially out of the gate week 1, Broderick Jones will be the left tackle. Chuck Okorafor, based on how comfortable he is at right tackle, the contract that he's under, he's going to be the right tackle. You need somebody to be a valuable swing guy. And right now the odds are Dan Moore is going to be that guy. And so you better start that training pretty early.
I would agree. And I would expect to hear more of that moving forward. And, at least the thing with one of the positive things with Broderick Jones was the fact that he practiced at right tackle quite a bit during, because they said they ran a skeleton kind of group of offensive linemen there, so to speak. So every practice they got work at both tackle spots there. So at least from a practice standpoint, he's familiar with the position.
If you're Pittsburgh, Dave, if you're Mike Tomlin, how many snaps, if any, do you give Broderick Jones at right tackle this summer in training camp?
I move them all around, Alex. I really do.
You moving a Okorafor too?
Because well, maybe not so much with a Okorafor because that's more Dan Moore's natural position. So probably not as much with him, but a Okorafor has obviously played left tackle in a lot in college and all. I would give the majority of the right tackle snaps throughout the summer to Broderick and Dan Moore, I think.
Okay, you said right tackle snaps to Jones and Moore?
I want to see them over there at right tackle. Because obviously Chukwuma Okorafor is going to be the starter over there. So he's going to get his natural amount of snaps there. I'm just saying outside of Dan Moore Jr., when those two guys are not rotating in at left tackle, they probably should be over at right tackle getting some snaps.
Yeah, I think Moore's going to play a lot more at right tackle this summer than Jones, and I'm comfortable with that. I think Jones will need some reps at right tackle because, again, if Moore becomes or remains the starter, then Jones is going to need some potential right tackle snaps to kind of be that swing guy early to start his NFL career. But I think you want to get Jones, a lot of snaps at left tackle to really evaluate him, to get him comfortable and see if he can really be this team's left tackle or not. So I think Jones will get some. Dan Moore will get more snaps at right tackle because you can kind of more easily shoehorn him back into that left tackle spot if need be, because he's pretty comfortable there at this point.
Right. But what if you'll go in, if you go into a season, because we've talked about this several times, this team got lucky. So I just want to make sure that you come out of the summer with those top three guys comfortable.
Sure. And I want Jones to get snaps at right tackle. No doubt about that, because he needs to. But I think the thought is sooner than later, Jones will be this team's starting left tackle. And that means that Moore's got to be the swing guy.
Sure.
And he needs a lot of snaps at right tackle because, as we just outlined, his experience there is pretty limited.
Right.
Anything else from OTA, Steve, in terms of things that caught your attention? I think those were kind of the big stories coming out of Thursday.
Yeah, I think those are the main takeaways. It was interesting to hear Patrick Peterson talk with Brian McFadden on the All Things Covered podcast about Calvin Austin.
Yeah, well, first of all, I know Patrick Peterson's about to be 33. I think he's 83. He talks like the oldest man ever. It's pretty funny to hear that guy speak, but said that joker's fast when it comes to Calvin Austin. Told the story of OTAs, a 7v7. Had no idea basically who Calvin Austin was because he didn't play last year. And so just lines up against him, gets that feel of his speed. Made sure to make it clear the pass was incomplete, but Peterson said that Austin's certainly the fastest guy in that room. And so it's good to hear that even though, Jones or Austin had that foot injury last year, had the foot surgery, does not appear he's lost his, 4.32 speed.
And I think you talk about the old man in the room, Peterson, and just because how look, he communicates very, very well, not only in the media interviews, but on his own podcast. And, he's been around the block, and to hear some of these, the younger cornerbacks talk, since they've been drafted and on through 2 weeks of OTAs, it sounds like, Patrick Peterson's being the big daddy in the room and doing a great job of communicating and helping those younger guys transition. So that's really invaluable to have a guy like that with that much experience that can take those young guys. And look, it's not just Trice and Porter Jr. as the young guys in the room either, right? Because you got a guy like James Pierre, who's still on the young side. You got a couple of these other, Chandon Sullivan obviously already has a relationship with Patrick Peterson, but it's a good overall addition for the room from a veteran standpoint, from a guy that isn't afraid of passing along his knowledge to these younger guys to make them better. So I think that's an undervalued key takeaway from when it comes to the addition to Patrick Peterson. I think that's pretty evident to hear everybody talk throughout this thing.
Yeah, I'm with you. To have that veteran leadership, you lose Cam Sutton, you replace that with Peterson. So it sounds like him and Minka have really taken charge of that room. And it's good to hear that Porter and Trice, they're asking questions. They want to be taught. They're not just passively or being forced basically to sit down and learn from these guys. They're active. They're high energy, as Peterson said. He joked that those guys make him feel young again. And so those are all, positive signs right now. The
avatar cornerback group, I guess. Those two, I tell you, when you see some of these clips come out, from like the Steelers.com and all like that, those guys do look like carbon copies of each other, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, they are two guys that look good getting off the bus. I mean, Porter's a bit longer than Trice, but Trice still has good length. And yeah, I mean, they are two big, physical, press man type of cornerbacks, and that's the type of defense Pittsburgh's trying to build.
And once again, if you can, not only you hope to get at least one, Pro Bowl / maybe all pro type cornerback out of these two. But imagine if you got, your mind can't help but wonder how nice it would be if both these guys hit, right?
Yeah, I mean, heck, if you could get there's a chance if all things go right, and obviously this is far down the road, but there's a chance that Porter and Trice could be your starting outside corners next year. Wallace is a free agent. Peterson, it's a 2-year deal. We'll see if he makes it to year 2. We'll see how 2023 goes. But Porter, probably a pretty good chance he's going to be a starting cornerback, in base packages for that first snap of 2024. And Trice, we'll see, but the potential's there.
All right. What else has come out of OTAs here? Anything?
I think those were the big things to talk about overall. Let me just scroll on down the site here. Yeah, let me just ask you just to kind of go back to that in terms of slot corner. Do you have any thought about how this thing's going to look come week 1? Any new thoughts?
Not a clue. I mean, it obviously is a positive and kind of a continuation from things that, Tomlin has said about Peterson since he was signed, and what Peterson's kind of has said. And, I'm not writing anything down in pen, but, it does look like we're trending to Peterson getting some sort of level of work in the slot. So, we got a long time to kind of look at this and break it down and all like that. But if this team were to still add at some point past, and look, they still have 89 on the roster, right, on the active roster right now. That number 90 could come in the next 5 minutes, or could come, after mandatory minicamp or whatnot. But I mean, if this team were still to add at some point between now and week 1, you would think slot, a more accomplished, better slot could potentially be on the table. I think a backup center very much that's one thing I think that kind of come out of this first 2 weeks of OTAs is it sure sounds like Kendrick Green's number 2 right now, right?
Yeah, I was going to bring that up to you as kind of the last piece of information that came out. Kendrick Green, basically saying I shouldn't have played my rookie year. It was a mistake on everybody's part to basically put me in that position. He wasn't comfortable at center. He says he feels more comfortable now. He's kind of gone back and forth about liking playing center versus not playing center, which is basically whenever the team has him at guard, he says, I did not like playing center. And then when he has him at center, he says, I like playing center. So that's kind of the way that he's approached this thing. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to do write an article sometime soon. My thought is Kendrick Green did not fail the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers failed Kendrick Green. Sure. I think they really misevaluated him, misused him totally. Yeah, he was the opposite of what they were looking for and what they wanted, what they needed. And it might be one of their worst draft picks in a long time, just from the aspect of the evaluation and just totally whiffing on that. And I still can't get my head around why they thought he was their day one starter.
Yeah, they square peg, round hole them, and right out of it. It's one thing to do it over time maybe, but that was coming out of that draft. That was one of the more confusing picks overall, especially when you get into week 1 of the season and he's your starter. And it didn't take too long when it came to the tape to know that wasn't going too well. And I think he's had to read all this stuff and he's seen his own tape and sat in the meeting rooms. It hasn't gone well for him at center, and for him to now be on both sides of the fence saying, man, I didn't like playing center, but now that he is kind of back at center saying, yeah, I'm trying to take to it. I mean, he's doing what through no fault of his own.
Sure.
He's you feel for the guy, right? I mean, sure. He's doing what he's told to do. And I just wonder how that's going to go the rest of this summer. And, I wrote several weeks ago that backup center needs to be, the center of attention, pardon my bad pun there, but I still think that that's a position that this team needs to look, and we don't know what's in line for Spencer Anderson, but it even sounds kind of unfair of him at this point, even though he's got some position flexibility to maybe fast track him into maybe becoming that backup center. So obviously you got Mason Cole there that's going to be your starter. My hope is from an analyst and a fan perspective is I sure hope they take a hard look at that backup center spot moving out through the rest of this process and potentially add. You're not going to get a Pro Bowler there to come in and be the backup center, but it does feel like you can do better than what you have right now when it comes to a backup center that could potentially, in emergency play 1 or 2 guard positions.
Not that I was his biggest fan or am going to lose a tremendous amount of sleep over this, but why didn't they just tender J.C. Hassenauer? They could have done that for still. I know it's a little bit more expensive. They still could have done that for relative cheap to get a pretty known backup center. Again, he's not a Pro Bowler. I think he was limited to center only, which kind of I think hampered his overall value to the team. He had played guard, but to me just was too small to actually play guard in a game comfortably. But it is weak behind Mason Cole right now. There's no question about that. So why not just tender Hassenauer, and you'd probably feel a bit better about your depth situation right now.
And, you got Ryan McCollum still on the roster, but what is he really, is that really, going to be an upgrade or whatnot? I mean,
I think he's a sleeper. I think he's a real sleeper. He's got some experience. He's got some size. Obviously haven't seen him in Pittsburgh too much, but I don't want to forget about him.
There are some guys on some rosters right now, though, on some 90-man rosters, whether they be number 2 or number 3 or maybe even a number 1 that gets shifted down to a number 2 that might not end up making a roster somewhere. It happens every offseason. So you can bet. I would like to think that they will be looking at that.
Someone in our live stream, I think maybe 2 editions ago, made the comment about Jimmy Morrissey from Pitt, who is with Kenny Pickett, and he's in Houston right now. I think it's a really good suggestion because the Texans drafted a couple centers, Juice Scruggs, they took pretty high. They took Jared Patterson after that. Morrissey's a guy that's played a bit of football, 24 years old. I don't know exactly what his roster odds look like right now. Probably not great coming out of the draft. And so he's a bit undersized too, but that's a name that I think really should be considered.
How many snaps has he played?
In his career, he has 315. He started 4 games in 2021, played just 57 offensive snaps last year as a backup. And so not a ton of experience, but some. And there's some good connections there back to Pittsburgh.
Okay. Well, maybe that's a possibility there. So look, and we'll circle this back to corner or slot corner, and even, I guess, inside linebacker. I know a lot of people are kind of wondering about Isaiah Simmons and all like that. And I know our own Jonathan Heitritter wrote about that this past week and all. I understand the attraction to that. I understand all the talk around it and that kind of thing there. But I mean, I think if you look overall where he's at contractually, and him being a former first round draft pick, right? And what they have invested with him, I think one of the key things that we pointed this out to the staff earlier in the week as well too. He is due a August 1st roster bonus with the Cardinals, and I think it's over $2 million there. So. And then they obviously didn't pick up his 5th-year option, right? So 2023 is scheduled to be the final year of Isaiah Simmons' contract. Everything screams when it comes to the Cardinals and Simmons is that they're going to have to make a decision on him by August the 1st, if indeed that language of that contract is true. And within that, I mean, if the Cardinals decide to keep him past August 1st, they're going to have to pay that roster bonus, and then they would be on the hook for it. Would they really make that decision of keeping him past August 1st and then trade him on top of it? And what would you get in return for that on either side of that decision? It makes it feel like that if they kept him past August 1st, they're going to keep him plain and simple at that point. Now, if you're looking at them potentially trading Simmons prior to them paying that August 1st roster bonus, how many teams out there are going to want to inherit a cap charge of, what did I say it would be, $3.4 million, right around in there for that kind of guy? Mm-hmm. There might be some teams willing to do that. Especially depending on injury and all like that. But on the flip side, once again, what are the Cardinals going to want in return for a former first round draft pick with only one, only under contract for the 2023 season, and then what are teams willing to give up for a player with a $3.4 million cap charge that could potentially be a 1-year rental? I guess where I'm getting with all this is the fact that, I mean, it's not impossible that the Cardinals would deal him. From where I sit, it just seems highly unlikely that they will. I think the path to Simmons to another roster might just be a flat out cut, mm-hmm. When it comes to him. So I understand the attraction, not only Steeler fans, but fans around the league when it comes to a guy like him. But I think when you get into the more logistics related to his contract and that August 1st decision, I think a lot of people are bypassing that.
It's a good point, I will say, and it's a different team, different situation, but the Rams paid Allen Robinson's March roster bonus, right? And then dealt him like a month later. When that happened with the Rams, he had a roster bonus they paid, and they still shipped him out.
What did I end up finding out about that with Robinson? No, the Steelers ended up. Wait a minute here.
Well, wasn't it like in March? Unless his contract.
That ended up not being the date with him.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So what happened with that?
Oh, I have to.
Is that the thing with the Rappaport tweet that was kind of confusing about how that
Yeah.
all got structured?
Yeah, I'll have to look back and see what I wrote about that, but it ended up being that his roster bonus was not tied to March.
Okay.
I'll have to.
Well, yeah, if you want to look that up, yeah, I mean, with Simmons, I get the connection, I get the pedigree. Who knows? I think you're right. A cut is probably more likely. You got a new regime, new GM, new head coach in there, didn't draft Simmons. But if you're a team trading for him in that contract, and it's not super small, 3.4, as you said, this guy's going to have to play for you. Going to have some sort of path to be more than just a special teamer. And because it's a 1-year deal, there's not a lot of time to wait and see. And so it is kind of tricky, as you said. So, you can't rule things out. Omar Khan's, been busy this offseason. No question about that, but probably less likely than some people think for the reasons that you just outlined.
I do know that there was a previously scheduled, roster bonus in 2024 with Allen Robinson that went away. Remember us talking about that as part of the restructure?
Right.
I don't have it in front of me here. It'd take too long to pull it up. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I don't think that the Rams, they obviously took ate money as part of that deal. But I don't remember them having. I'll have to look back at the roster bonus. I don't remember.
Okay. Well, I think it's probably a good time to wrap things up from the Steelers.
I mean, they obviously, if they wanted to, and once again, what would they for the Cardinals to have to eat? Let's say the 2 whatever roster bonus on Simmons is part of the deal. You would think they would want a pretty good return in the draft pick to do it, right?
I mean, they're not going to get much. This is a guy that hasn't worked out. If they're shipping him, then teams know he's basically on his way out of Arizona. Again, new regime. I would think he would get, at best, a 4th-round pick.
Okay.
That's my view for the 1-year rental aspect of it, too. You can't give up a high draft pick for a guy that, you have no idea what he's going to be on the field this year, and then you have no idea if he's going to be on your team next year.
To me, it sounds more from a because the Cardinals will make a decision on Simmons, you would think, whether or not they're going to want to keep him by August 1st, right?
Yeah, I mean, when the bonus is due, yeah, they're going to have to make that call, yeah.
So what I'm getting at is if Simmons is dealt, I would imagine that the Cardinals would expect whatever team he's traded to be on the hook for that August 1st roster bonus. In other words, if he's going to be dealt, it'd be between now and August 1st. To me would be the most logical thing.
Probably, although maybe you could argue that if the Cardinals are the ones who have to pay that roster bonus, maybe a team would give up extra capital because they're no longer having to pay for that. If you're paying the bonus and his actual salary as a high 1st-round pick, you may give up a little bit less to get that guy, knowing all that's coming and you're going to be on the hook for it. Unless you can maybe somehow, can you take that out of the contract? Or is that kind of slotted in with the CBA and the rookie deals?
Yeah, I don't know about all that, but he ain't going to want that to go away. He's not going to, a young player
yeah, but you would go to him and say, well, you're about to be cut. So it's going to go away no matter, you either want to get traded and go somewhere, or you want to be cut and, start all over. It's your call.
And look, I mean, you obviously any team that acquired him, if they did so, but before that and say they acquired and had to be on the hook for that August 1st roster bonus, even though he's only on they could probably do something to add a couple of void years and stretch that out if they were that far cap conscious.
Why does he have a roster bonus? Is that typical for rookie contracts like that?
For first rounders, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't aware.
Part of the slotting, and I think where he
Devin Bush have one.
I'd have to go back and look, but I think he did as part of that, and fully guaranteed. And I think this is fully guaranteed on Simmons as well too. So if they did cut him, Let me see. I looked at that the other day. Let me see if that indeed is fully.
Yeah, if the contracts are fully guaranteed, how is there a roster bonus that I guess wouldn't be fully guaranteed if you got cut?
Because I think it works into the whole 25% rule and all like that. Just how teams structure these things. Okay. Where's the guarantee on this? His guaranteed for Simmons guaranteed salary is 3.427. So not all. He was, what was he? He was 8th overall in the draft. No, yeah. His full roster bonus is guaranteed, as is his base salary.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
So in other words, his rookie contract was indeed fully guaranteed.
Right, but there's still a roster bonus in there.
Right, and that's guaranteed as well too. Right, it's 2.
So he gets that no matter what, even if he's cut.
Yeah, if he's cut, he gets paid that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the Cardinals.
And if he's traded, he gets paid that from whoever, whether it's whether it's it depends on who's on the hook on whoever's on the hook for it.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on Simmons. I know it's been talked about some. We'll see.
But just part, circling this back before we switch to the interview here, is that, there are obviously positions on this roster the Steelers could still stand to improve. Backup center, slot cornerback, and maybe even inside linebacker.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, Dave, I think people have waited long enough here. Let's get to our conversation with Steelers scout Mark Gorsuch, again, stepping down after a 28-year career with Pittsburgh, graduating on to new things. We'll talk about what some of those new things might be and his time in Pittsburgh. We'll take a break and come back with Mark. And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast, and a very special guest on today's episode. We mentioned this at the top of the show and have him here now, fresh off a great almost 30-year career with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Scout Mark Gorsuch is our guest today. We're so excited to get to talk with him. Mark, how you doing?
I'm happy, tell you the truth. I wake up happy.
Well, we're very glad to hear that. And again, congrats on your great career
Absolutely.
with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Just the graduation. That's all it is.
Right. I know I want to ask you about your next football plans as well, but I know most fans, Steeler fans, know you by name, by face, and also you're the man that was running the NFL Combine 40-yard dash, and they're going to miss you too over there in Indy for sure. But Mark, I want to just ask you, since you talked about, this is a graduation, why now in terms of, stepping down from your role with the Pittsburgh Steelers as an area scout? Why now was the time to do that?
Well, I just thought after 28 years and 16 years of coaching before that, I've been involved in football for 44 years. So it reaches a point in time where I'd like to do some other things. I'm looking for new challenges and creativity. I'm really seeking creativity right now. And, you want to be able to do things at a lesser pace too, because of the fact that I've been involved in football. I never had a fall off except for the 1 year I was out because I was in arena football in 1987 while I was general manager at Pittsburgh Gladiators years ago, in the Civic Arena of all places. But it's just time.
Dave, you can go ahead.
Yeah. First and foremost, we'd like to apologize for stalking you so much over the last several years, but it's kind of what we do in tracking all these scouts as they go across the various pro days specifically, and obviously you've been involved with the combine as well. So let me pick it up with the combine in particular there. Tell the people how that all came about initially, and a lot of us we've gotten used. That you are part of that process. Steeler fans in particular look forward to seeing you every year at that. What are the prospects of maybe you continuing that moving forward, at the combine in some way, shape, or form?
I asked Jeff Foster about that, and I told him I'd like to do it for another couple of years. And he said, because I'm not a team affiliate, I have to be voted in by the board of trustees. And Kevin Colbert's still on there. I told Kevin that, and Kevin goes, "Oh, you'll get my vote." And I jokingly said to Jeff, I said, if you need me to interview and send you a resume, I think it's pretty good. But it's one of those things where I got roped into by a longtime scout named C.O. Bricado. And I did it. I got talked into doing it at the old Cactus Bowl, a D2 game where we did everything to these young men. We worked them out. We did a whole combine. They practiced 3 times a day too. And he saw me, and the guy previous to me retired. He goes, "You're my 40 starter, boy." I said, "No, I'm not, CO." "Oh yeah, boy." And he's an old Louisiana guy from Shreveport, living down in Texas, And I said, "No." Well, he called up Kevin. Okay. And he told Kevin I was going to be the starter. And Kevin calls me in his office. And he said, "You got to do it." I go, "Why?" He goes, "You're going to know everything about those young men because you're going to be on that field. You're going to talk to all his group leaders. You'll find out all the dirt, who these young men are, who's the good people, who the bad people are, how they behave, and all that stuff is valuable information." So I reluctantly said, "Yeah." And then the very first year I'm down there, and there's something you grow into like anything. And all of a sudden this guy comes up. He goes, "I'm so-and-so NFL Network." "Stay, yeah, good. Mark Gorscak, Pittsburgh Steelers." So I start walking away. He goes, "Hey, wait a minute. You need to put this microphone on." I said, "What?" "Put this microphone on." And I said, "You're kidding me." He said, "No, you got to have a mic on." And then next thing I know, I got camera crews around me. I get in my stance that everyone makes fun of because they said I look like a tailback in Nebraska eye set. And I got a camera down by my feet. I'm like looking around, going, "Hey, could you move over a little bit? I'm trying to work here," and all that stuff. And then I just grew into it, And now between me, 49ers scout, Justin Shabat, and another young man from Cardinals, we run that whole field. We set the times, we get together, and then I have a good relationship with NFL Network, and we set the times so we take care of those young men so they get ample amount of time to loosen up.
Do you like the switch of because here's one of the concerns that I have with the combine, and we track everything through that.
Mm-hmm.
We have spreadsheets and track that annually and have for years. And obviously since they have shifted things like the 3-cone and the short shuttle and really the start of the event overall daily to later in the day, you see less of these kids doing the 3 cones and the short shuttles at the combine. And I know most of them end up doing them at their pro day anyway, but it's good to have that baseline in Indy between all those guys. And I wonder now, what do you think is going to happen with the combine moving forward? Are we going to see these kids do less and less things at the combine moving forward? In other words, nobody running a 3-cone, nobody running a short shuttle, and it just basically be the physical and the 40-yard dash.
Well, the trend has started a couple years ago. Started with the long shuttle, which was just a grueling shuttle. It was a 60-yard shuttle back and forth. It was like running a baseline in basketball, and we did away with that. But you would like to see everybody do everything at the combine because historically that's where all the data generates because it's the same playing surface.
Right.
It's the same surface. It's everything can be generated from here. But things are getting out of the cart. Started out with the fast quarterbacks. I won't mention names. They're refusing to run the 40. "Hey, watch the tape. I'm fast." "Yeah, you're right." And there are a couple of those guys. Now the trend right now is the 3-cone. Nobody wants to run the 3-cone. Some of these guys don't run in the pro day. But, with the event of NIL, okay, that's going to change a lot. They may ask to get paid. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. It's just something I foresee in the future that NIL is going to play a role in everything you do. I think after you get out of your college, they're going to want to get paid because they are professionals. They were professionals in college now. They want to get paid to go ahead and work out. Or maybe my tape's good enough. Watch the tape. There's going to be certain trends going to happen because I think NIL. And it's going to affect college football. It's going to affect pro football. All I can say is, tell me the rules of the game. I'll win at the game.
Mark, for those that don't know you, longtime area scout, can you just give me, a season by season breakdown of what your responsibilities were, what you did about this time of year, starting a new draft cycle into the fall, winter, and of course, as you get into actual, draft season, which is all the time for you guys, but in terms of the media kind of based draft season, what are your responsibilities? Like, for example, this time a year ago, how are you preparing for the next class? What do you do in the fall? What do you do in the pre-draft process? Just kind of give an overview of your responsibilities.
Well, let me take you back to the fall process. When we're in training camp and we're going through our schedules and trying to have some separation so we don't show up at the same school at the same time. So we see them at different time periods. Okay, because that way you can tell the development. If you can go early, middle, and late, that's even the best way, because some people peak late, some people peak early, and they may have a law because of an injury, or maybe a personal issue happened to them. Maybe someone passed away that's in their family. Maybe they were sick and all that stuff. But fall camp, what we do is we rate our own players to help give the coaches a perspective, our opinion. We set our schedules, and then we go out. We try to go out during fall training camps for the colleges, just because the volume of prospects you have at major colleges are just, it's immense. And to be able to go ahead and talk to coaches, the trainer, academics, strength coaches, and you may have, like at Alabama, you may have 20 guys you're talking about. It's a tedious process, so it's better to go in training camp and try to get some of your major schools knocked out in that way. Then once the season starts to roll, you got to go ahead and start someplace. I usually start my C schools, they're free agent schools, and they usually have a couple of people, do them early. I can always check on them later, and then jump into the college tape as the major colleges get 3 or 4 games in. But you're on the road from, I watch our Steelers game on Sunday, and I usually have to get up at 5 o'clock, catch a 7 o'clock flight out of Pittsburgh. I try to hit 4 or 5 schools up, come home on Friday, or stay out and do a game. And so you're on the road a lot. And I don't drink at every college bar like my college buddies thought back in 1995 when I started. You don't have time to do that. Mm-hmm. You're consumed by this. From the time you get up to the time you get in bed, it's Groundhog's Day. And you do that, from August 4th to the middle of November. And you're writing reports all the time. I try to crush as much as I can during the week. So if I'm home on the weekend to watch us play, my girlfriend's in town, I want to enjoy her, and I got to take a break, rest my mind. Sure. Then after you get that little lull, okay, you'll be doing some cross checks, either by positions for different areas or different schools, which is easier to do because you're home in December. And then you got January is going to be all-star games. Okay. Then you got the combine February. March Madness, as some people call it, for all the pro days. April's your draft meetings. You do the draft. You got a little bit of law. You got rookie mini camp. Okay, now you got OTAs going on right now, and this is kind of like the law right now. OTAs are easy. You watch the people. Okay, you may have a position, you may not, but you get a chance to notice everybody. The free agents that you signed, that were pro for free agents, and also the college free agents, as well as your draft choices, and watch them compete. And then you have a little lull after that during July, where you get to chill out, go on vacation, do different things. But you're going to spend, like I said to somebody in a podcast or one of the articles that were written about me, 28 years of doing this, 9 years in Marriott Hotel.
Yeah, you can probably give the best hotel reviews of anybody, I think, that I know right now. I was going to ask you, you mentioned it because there is so much information and prospects and risers and, guys underclassmen that may declare if they have a good year. How do you start that? Is that Blesto that helps kind of give you a groundwork of who to look for and some of the prospects? I mean, just where do you begin in terms of a list of names and guys to start evaluating and talking about? Well,
you hit it on the head, Blesto, and there's also National Scouting. Okay. Right. All the teams are involved in those 2 organizations except for 4. And we all share that information. Blesto shares it with their teams. National shares it with them. We go over it. And all it is guidelines. These are young scouts. We have a young scout, okay, that's designated as our Blesto rep, and he's starting out to go ahead and create a list. And it's an oxymoron because you got a young guy breaking in, and I was that young guy at one time in 1995. I was the Blesto rep on the South Coast for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Did I know what I was doing? No, you grow into it. Okay, so your list, people you think are draftable, you may think it's a free agent, they may be a lot better than that. But you don't have a baseline until down the road as you build that, as you get a couple years into it. But they give you the guidelines, and then we have some analytical people in our office will go ahead and, Toast and Will, they'll go ahead and look statistically at players, particularly juniors, and create our own junior list, okay, just to look at also, just to be on the safe side. And if you go like Alabama's really good. It's full disclosure down there. Sure. You want to talk about a redshirt sophomore, they're going to talk about a redshirt sophomore. You ask, they'll tell you everything because they want their players to come out early. If they're good enough to be drafted in those first 3 rounds, that's what they want because that word's going to spread it. You can come out early, you're going to get more players like that. But that's basically how the list gets started. Plus, if you're a KG vet and you notice somebody that's a reject on the list, but the coach at the school recommending, and you watch him, you go, this guy ain't no reject. He's a player.
Mark, your process, obviously you go to so many pro days during the pro day season and all. Walk us, and Alex and I are all about, we love process. We love looking at that kind of stuff and taking our listeners and our readers into that. What would your process look like, say, right ahead of and on the way to each pro day trip? Obviously, these kids aren't foreign to you. You know so much about them. How much do you watch more tape of those kids on the plane and in the hotel? Just kind of take us through the process, say the day on the way to each pro day.
No, I don't watch any more tape because chances are it's a big school I'm going to. I probably saw 6-7 games. I probably saw the best competition. I probably saw them early, middle, late. I have enough tape in, but I want to refamiliarize myself with them. Okay. I want to reread my reports. I want to go over the character. So in case I have some questions, they're pinpoint questions. When I go into even a second school visit or, going to a pro day, I'm not asking for the full Monty and ask him everything again. Hey, man, I may have a certain question. Hey, how does he really learn? I noticed this on tape. Pinpoint questions, particularly to the people you build relationships with. I always tell people anybody can learn how to grade tape. You really can. Anybody can. But how much information, what's the relationship you could build to get good quality information from the coaches, from the support staff? You got to build that trust. And part about building trust is about giving back to them too. What can you do to help them out? They may need a favor too. They may need, hey man, anybody at this school, I want to move on from here. I'm trying to rise up. Okay. Hey, I want to become a scout. I have approximately, last time I counted 22 young men and women in the National Football League that I helped and they got jobs. I gave them guidance and they're scouts in the league. And I don't know how many I have in college football. A Pitt recruiter told me today, you can go, say, man, I don't want to blow smoke up you, but if it was for you being real to me when I was at this D3 school, I'd probably still be at this 3D school instead of at Pitt right now. But you have to build relationships. How do you do it? I'm a note writer. My notes notoriously hanging on people's bulletin boards. Okay. I do it because I'm honest, sincere about it. I want to thank people. I want to go ahead. If you get a new job, I'm writing your congratulation note because I'm honest, sincere about it. I do a lot. I've been writing notes since 1986. And that was before I was with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I had an old coach who used to write notes and he instilled that belief in me. I do it today yet. And you'd be amazed how many people really like that. I got a note from the head coach of South Carolina, congratulating my retirement. And, just what I meant to him, building that relationship. I keep those type of notes, man. That's pretty cool putting your scrapbook. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All of a sudden you got the head coach of University of South Carolina. You got, I don't know how many notes from people. I have a relationship with Coach Belichick, and I wrote him a couple of times. He drafted an old football player of mine from Weber State and Tal Papua, and Tal never made it. He went to Cleveland. Okay. Then, Bill got whacked there. And then Tal became an opera singer in New York City, a tenor. Okay. And there was a thing in a Weber State alumni magazine about Tal Papua, football player to opera. I sent it to Coach Belichick. And he wrote me a handwritten note back. And he said, I always knew Tal had talent, but I thought it was football talent. And I have that in my scrapbook. When you just don't know what the power of a note is to build those relationships. But going back to the pro day, I just want to get familiar with them, and have pinpointed questions that I may need answered. Then I just want to watch the workout. I want to study them. I want to see how well they follow directions. They got strange coaches, put them through some of the strange drills too, because some of these coaches put these guys through drills. I don't know what they're football related or not, but it's what they do. So, but you learned a lot about the young men.
Mark, did you have, obviously you scouted, learned to scout all positions over time and all like that. I know even today, and I've watched my share of film over the years and all like that. I love to watch edge rushers and tight ends. Do you have a favorite position that you enjoyed scouting the most?
I can't say that because you get so used to scouting everybody. So I haven't really thought in that fashion. You just know you got 20 players. Sometimes you have 14 guys on defense. Okay. They only play with 11. You got to notice rotation, all that stuff. So you're not paying attention to, this is my favorite. What's real cool, you notice is when you go, man, I only got 2 guys on defense at this small school. This is going to be easy. You know what I mean?
Yes.
2 guys, man, I crank through that tape like it's nothing. And I don't think they're draftable. I think they're good free agents, whatever. Chances are I'll know the coach and I'll say, hey, can you get these 2 young men to come in here now so I don't have to watch practice? I can go ahead and move on because I got 20 reports to do from last night yet, But, I just don't think in those terms.
Gotcha. Alex?
Mark, I was going to ask you, and you mentioned this earlier, and I've always read this in your bio in the media guide, and I've always wanted to know, you mentioned in 1987, you spent a year as the Pittsburgh Gladiators GM. How did that happen? Because you were a pretty young guy back then. I want to know the story of how that occurred, and did that experience help you as a scout down the road?
I completely BS my way into it.
Well, tell me.
I was at Weber State. Okay. It's a 1AA school in Ogden, Utah. I got roped into that by Mike Price, who later went to Washington State and won 2 Rose Bowls, one with Ryan Leaf. Okay. And I'm a graduate assistant there. I'm trying to get a full-time job. I'm living off $249 a month, and it was 1987. And I saw a blurb in Sporting News 2 years earlier about arena football. At that time period, there was no internet. Okay, the Sporting News was the Bible because it covered all the sports. All seasons, even in the off seasons, they had something. It was a 2-inch blurb. I cut it, saved it. Well, I'm reading Sporting News in the GA office, and I saw arena football going to be started. They did a test game, this summer. Jim Foster created it. And he said, he's going to start building staffs and all that stuff. So I went ahead, and he was living in Chicago. And that time period, 411 was information on a rotary dial. You guys probably don't remember that.
Oh yeah,
Dave does. I don't.
I'm 55. So
okay,
born in 68.
I dialed 411, and the operators. I was at Weber State, so I was burning up their phone lines looking for work. And I dialed 411. I said, Jim Foster, Chicago. And she goes, well, I got about 10 of them. I'll take all 10. Wrote them all down. First guy I called was Jim Foster, ran a football. And he picked up, and I told him that I want to get involved. I'm at Weber State right now. And at that time period, I was a graduate assistant, and I start running all the trips. For the travel team and all that stuff. Mike trusted me, and he liked me better than assistant AD at that time. And I was doing all kind of administration. I was coaching tight ends for him too, and I was doing football marketing. So I told him my background and all that stuff, and he goes, "Well, we're going to put a franchise tomorrow in Denver. If you can make it to Denver, since you're in Utah, I'll interview you. I might just hire you." So I'm sitting in the office, kind of dejected because, I'm from Pittsburgh. My dad's still working. My mom's a waitress. I ain't got no money, man. And so Mike Price, the head coach, comes by, and he used to call me Gorbachev because Gorbachev instead of Gorsuch, because Gorbachev was the president of Russia during that time period. He goes, Gorbachev, what's going on? I said, got a job interview. He goes, great. Where? Denver tomorrow for arena football. Never heard of it. Are you going? I said, Mike, it's a 10-hour drive. It's 6:00 right now. By the time I leave and get there, it's going to be 7:00 in the morning. I got to drive all night. My car ain't going to make it. I got a beat up Volkswagen Rabbit. We used to call it the Silver Surfer. And I said, I don't know how I'm going to get there. I said, ask your parents, give you money. Why are you money? I said, my dad's a steel worker. First of all, he wouldn't know how to do it. He's a U.S. steel worker, and my mom's a waitress. She wouldn't know how to do it either. And they ain't got money. And he goes, wait right here. He came back half hour later. He says, there's a ticket waiting for you, Delta. Here's $50. Go get that job. And I flew out on the 6:00 flight, took a cab to the old Nichols Arena. They announced the Denver Dynamite team. He interviewed me, and he goes, well, I like you. I think you're going to be one of my general managers. You got to go to Wheaton on this date. And that's how I got it. Completely BS my way through it.
Wow. That's amazing.
And by happenstance, you work for a good, you're working for a good man that happened to come through and ask you, what are you doing? You tell him you got a job interview, and he went ahead and got you a ticket. Mike Price means a lot to me. He did a lot for my career. He's done a lot for a lot of people's careers. And because of him and me in a good line of BS and 411 information.
How about that? What an incredible story. Thank you for sharing that. I want to go back to the Steelers. As Dave noted, we love tracking this stuff. Did they change your territory this year? You were a Southern Scout for a long time. Felt like you're doing more Midwest to replace Dan?
To the Midwest, and all the young scouts out there looked at me and they said, you ever work out here before? I said, yeah. They go, when? When I gave Tom Brady that free agent grade. They go, you gave Tom Brady a free agent grade? Yeah, so did everybody else except for the Patriots. They took him the 6th round. They go, well, that was a long time ago. Yeah, that was the last time I was out here. And then another young scout goes, well, we're going to Michigan State tomorrow. You going to Michigan State? Yeah, I'm going to Michigan State too, because it was during training camp and all that stuff. And they go, who was head coach last time you were at Michigan State? I said, Nick Saban.
They have no idea Nick Saban was even the head coach ever at Michigan State.
No, and then Ryan Kelly was the head coach at Grand Valley State. Never did I ever think he would make it to LSU, Notre Dame, Cincinnati, Central Michigan in my entire life after meeting him at Grand Valley State. But this just shows you a thin snapshot of somebody you just don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask you as well, Omar Khan, GM for the final year there, what were the differences in terms of the scouting process between how Omar Khan ran things and how Kevin Colbert ran things? I know Khan said it was about 85% the same. I'd be curious to know what that 15% difference was in terms of the approach, analytics. What kind of changed this past cycle?
He just streamlined it, basically. And he added more analytics. Analytics I like analytics, but I like the nuggets of analytics. Mm-hmm. And he added a lot of different things. So you knew what ideal size and speed for the last 10 years were for every position. You knew when you went into stats, if they had ideal production, or just average production or below average production, just clues and keys of that fashion. But he just streamlined the approach where we didn't spend as much time. Kevin was very meticulous, had a lot of checks, double checks, triple checks, and all that stuff. And Omar eliminated that down to check and double check. But very similar in nature. And Omar did a nice job of moderating everything and making them a Steeler. Okay, and that's what it all is. It's about blending all the opinions, taking subjectivity, making them into a Steeler. Okay, and that becomes objective. And I've said it before, when you take subjectivity and make it to objectivity, it's programmed to fail too. But we've had a pretty good batting average here in my 28 years. And Omar's he's trending in the right direction. He did a super job this year. Time will tell, what the future lies. All I know is what we did this year. And my big thing is I'm just trying to make the day a good yesterday. I ain't worried about tomorrow.
I got you. Speaking of analytics, and because we're on the outside and don't, aren't able to visit these schools and get the all 22 early and all, we have to kind of reverse engineer it. A lot of times we start with the analytics part of it, then kind of narrow it down as to guys, over the years that we think, the Steelers fit that kind of mold, and then, get in more into the tape come draft season and all like that, just because of the way the process is on the outside here. But talk a little bit about, we've over the years can kind of quickly identify, it used to be the spark score, and then now it's more on the outside, this relative athletic score that a lot of people depend on. And obviously it's related to length of, measurements and obviously times and all like that. But can you talk a little bit about the improvement of analytics? And specifically, I mean, there is analytically a Steelers type player, right?
I think there's ideal players by position, that you can go ahead and quantify by numbers. But when you start talking about an ideal Steeler player, there's so much other makeup involved in that. And you're talking about the mental, you're talking about the toughness and grit, you're talking about for the love of the game. Kevin always used to say that we make all our mistakes on hearts and smarts. They weren't smart enough or didn't have the heart, or a combination of both. And how can you quantify that by analytics?
Right.
I know people that have low Wonderlic tests, and they're pretty smart about football. And that's the misnomer about it. Okay. I hate when people go, well, he's a rep learner. Well, that's all we do is teach reps. Okay. We take it in the classroom, we show it on tape, we go outside, we do individuals. Okay. We do unit work, we do 9-on-7 and 7-on-7, and we do it as a team. It's a lot of reps, isn't it? And then we're going to go ahead and watch that tape again and break it down again. So we're all rep learners, in some form, some fashion. So it's tough to quantify certain things. And Kevin put it real simple: hearts and smarts. And that's where we make our mistakes on. It's easy to say analytics plays a role, but like I said, I like analytics, but I just think you got to use the right nuggets. If you get too much information, I think you become paralyzed with it. And Joe Madden thought that when his last job, he was one of the first baseball manager when he was in Tampa. He embraced it and used it, but they had small departments. It was a little bit bigger in Chicago. And he said when he went to the Angels, they were in every staff meeting. They dressed out. They sat on the bench. They talked to the players. They had, they were in the dressing room. They had their own locker next to the coaches, and it was just too overwhelming. He thought it might have been one of his downfalls there. So, but I like it. I think our analytic guy Tosin and Will do a great job, and you just got to use what you want to use. And Mike has a lot of statistics he uses, a lot of analytics. But he still watches the tape religiously. He knows things that analytics don't tell you. He knows where the running backs lined up at in relationship to quarterback, whether he's in a pistol set sidecar, if he's one step back in the sidecar. He knows who that runner is. Does he have multiple role player? Okay, can he play wide receiver and running back? And Mike still watches the tape, and he's really good at it. You learn a lot of football just hanging out. Mike watches tape in the scouting room, so we always tell the young scouts and interns, man, listen what Mike watch what he's watching, because you learn a lot, and a Grizzly vet like me learns a lot from him also.
The big running joke we've had for several years, especially towards the end of Kevin Colbert's tenure there, was that Kevin Colbert basically come draft day had about 25 names on an index card, and you could probably pull the draft class out of those 25 names. Now we have fun with that, but just over the years we've been able to if we had to choose 50 guys ahead of every draft, we could probably pretty come close to getting the whole draft class out of that. I guess where I'm going with this, do you feel like maybe the Steelers have become too predictable when it comes to the pre-draft process? And I guess B, do they care?
I don't think we're predictable at all. And I know we don't care. Kevin used to always use a developmental formula, and we still do it today, where it's a predictor of where you should pick your first round, second round, third round, based upon what you saw. Not what the media thinks, not what the other teams and all that stuff. It's how you like them. And it holds true in the first 3 rounds. Then it starts to go ahead and get the people you like in the third, well, the people you like in the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh round, everyone else kind of likes those same people then, but it's how you like them. You don't care what anybody likes. You don't care what all the, Todd McShay and all those other guys think. What do they know? Todd McShay looks miserable every time you see him on TV, for God's sakes. He looks like he's not having fun, and football is a fun job, as you guys know.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Alex.
I was going to ask you just a couple more questions, Mark, and thank you again for your time. Is there one, I know you've scouted so many players over the years, but one Steeler that the story that sticks out to you the most, somebody that you watched and you scouted and you said, this guy needs to be a Pittsburgh Steeler, that this team took, somebody you were banging the table for? Is there any name that comes to mind?
See, that's a misnomer about this. When the Steeler ways, being a Steeler is real easy. It's all about the team. It's not about your ego.
Sure.
For me to say I banged my hand and stood on a table and stuff, that's not. We don't do that either. When it's your turn, get in the box. You say your opinion. Okay. When you're out of the box, it's the next person's. Okay. You may disagree, but you don't have to be disagreeable. There's people we picked. I didn't like them as a player. But once they become a Pittsburgh Steeler, they're family. I like them, So it's all about the team. And that's Mr. Rooney, when he was alive, he used to always address the group and say that all the time. Right before the draft, we had all departments and all that stuff in the football facility. And he used to say that to us. He used to say, hey, you may disagree with who we picked, but once we draft them, they're family. We like them. And he was so right, because they are family. So it's all about the team. It's not about you. It's not about the ego. And that's what Steeler means to me.
Sure.
Like I said, but then I said, I also told you got to admit your screw ups. Tom Brady's mine.
Again, you weren't alone in that one for sure. But I will always think about T. Martin being part of that class, that quarterback group ahead of Tom Brady. But
we gave him, we drafted him, became a heck of a coach, because he's coaching Detroit.
Right.
He's been around the block. His son's a football player. So we saw something in T.
Right. For sure. My last question, then I'll let Dave finish things out. As you mentioned, kind of the Pittsburgh way, I think what's so unique about the Steelers is how many guys in that front office have ties to Pittsburgh. You, of course, from Pittsburgh, Kevin Colbert, Dan Colbert, the late Ron Hughes, Mark Bruner, Chidi Iwoma, all those guys playing for Pittsburgh. Did that give you guys a leg up, having such a sense of community and knowing about the city and the history of the team? Do you feel like that gave you advantage as a scouting staff and a front office to find the next great Steeler, being able to lean upon that history that you guys basically all grew up within?
I can't speak for those people, but all I know is for myself. Once I start working for the Pittsburgh Steelers, my dad said, when I told him I was interviewing, he goes, "You got to get that job." Yeah, no kidding, Dad. And you don't want to have you don't want to let down a city. It's kind of like. If someone goes, are you going to leave Pittsburgh? I said, no, I'm going to stay here. I'm established here. Everybody knows me here. I made a reputation here. I go all the dive bars. I'm Steeler Mark, because there was a guy from Cleveland. He's Cleveland Mark, so you keep the bar tabs. It's different.
It's important. Yeah.
But you don't want to have a sense of letting the city down, the people down, because you meet people. So you're out there. When you're working for the Steelers and you have a bad game, well, you're a target for people, because they want to rant, they want to vent, because they care so much. They have an opinion. So you don't want to let these people down in the draft, in a game, or anything like that. And you have to be respectful and let them vent. You know what I mean? You got to be able, just listen. You may not like it, but is it going to help you by telling the guy off, telling him, you're wrong and all that stuff? It's like, hey, you may be right. Yeah, that's a good opinion, but people care. There's other places that there's teams that you can be in the airport and they wear their swag, okay, in the airport. No one's asking them a thing. If I got a Pittsburgh Steelers shirt on or anything Pittsburgh, there's people come up to you. Are you from Pittsburgh? So I try not to wear Steeler gear because people want to talk to you.
Right.
So you got to,
You wouldn't be able to hide from us. Wouldn't be able to pick you.
Yeah, I know. You guys trolling me across the country. I get it. But other teams, man, I feel bad for some of those teams. They walk in the airport, ain't nobody talking to them. when I had my Steelers stuff on, everybody was talking to me. I felt bad for them. No one cared about them. And then it happens, and there's certain teams, the Cowboys, the Steelers, the Raiders. Those are the old traditional teams from the 70s. And everybody knew those teams. Now it's kind of like, Jacksonville got to play overseas, for God's sakes, and you start looking at some of these other teams that don't win, and you go, God, we're their fan base. Okay. Let's face it, there's certain groups, there's certain areas we go into and we take over the stadium. When was the last time Atlanta came to Pittsburgh and took over the stadium?
Right.
Yeah,
this year we took over the stadium down here. So you got to look at things like that. This is a special, special place. You don't want to let anybody down.
To close you out here, Mark, how would you, in a couple of sentences, sum up your time, 28 years, nearly 30 years in the NFL with the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Oh God.
And how will people remember? What do you hope people say about Mark Gorscak 30 years from now?
I just hope they knew that I was a good person. I gave back. That's what I'm hoping, and I have. I just, all I know is the only reason why I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers was someone helped me, and they always told me to give back. And every time I got a job or advanced in this from high school coaching to Division III, 1AA, arena football, Pittsburgh Steelers, whatever, someone helped me. Someone gave to me, and I always feel I got to give back. And that's all I want to be remembered as, someone who gives back and someone who represents this organization the right way.
No, fantastic.
Making me tear up a little bit.
Mark, we appreciate your time so much. Tremendous insight. Congrats on a fantastic Pittsburgh career. I know you said graduating, not retiring, still a lot more, I'm sure, for you to do, but cannot thank you enough for being so honest and earnest and forthright about your time in Pittsburgh. So thank you so much.
Hey, no problem. Like I said, you got to give back. You people are important too, because you're a mouthpiece for these fans. Number of traffic, you come through your website and all that stuff, and the hits is amazing for yourself. So you guys are doing a good job too, Reppin'.
Well, that means a lot coming from you, for sure. And we have enjoyed following your career in Pittsburgh, and look forward to what's next for you as well, too.
Appreciate you, man.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. And again, our special thanks to Mark Gorsuch for being so gracious with this time, and just a fantastic interview. Dave, this is our Christmas. We love getting to talk to these guys and really go behind the scenes about what it's like to be a scout and how the process works, and hearing some of the great stories that he told. It's a really cool inside look that you don't get often as fans. Yeah, kind of surreal. Once again, you go from a guy that we've followed around with the push pins on the map, so to speak, for several years, and obviously him being part of the combine like he is, and being a very, very recognizable face. And as we explained to him several times throughout the interview too, man, we love process. I mean, give us more and more process. And it was good to hear several things that happened, with the scout and get some of those questions. We could have had him on another 40 minutes, he probably would have let us too, if we would have pushed it and all. But for guys like us that stay so far, you're so in tune with the draft process and scouts, and I know you note every change that happens, whether they go to the from the West Coast to the Midwest, and anything that moves on the Steelers scouting page, you're obviously aware of. So it was cool to have him on, and I got a feeling that maybe that's not the last time that we talk to him either. Yeah, hopefully not, but wish him well with whatever comes next. And so let us know your feedback about the Gorsuch interview. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Also, a minor note here, my voice may sound different on today's episode and during that interview, which was recorded the other day. I'm doing my own version of testing up pass rush moves during the spring right now with some audio settings. So just a heads up there, if things sound a bit different compared to the previous podcast and the interview versus how I'm talking right now. But Dave,
are you trying to set? Is it the Peter Brady setting or whatnot? Is that what it is?
I am not old enough to get that reference enough to respond to it. I know it's a Brady Bunch reference. I'm trying to think which one Peter was. Is this when his voice group, like he grew up and he was going through puberty and
his voice was changing. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm trying to avoid that because my voice naturally sounds like that. I have just the worst voice, and I know I've read some of the criticism, and it's harsh but fair that I have a terrible podcast voice, and I'm very, very sorry for that. But trying to make it sound a little more tolerable, I'm gonna have to play with things. But I'm basically doing like the Cam Hayward spin moves right now in May, just to try to maybe tweak some things for you guys.
I'm asking for a friend here, but do you have any sort of a setting that removes nails on a chalkboard voice with some stuttering mixed in? Do you have any setting for that?
I think the program I use does have that. Let me look up the nails chalkboard remover setting. I do see that in there.
Okay, good. Well, I might have to get that from you after we're done recording this.
All right, Dave, anything else you want to talk about, or do you want to get to some reader emails and close out today's show?
Yeah, it's been a fun week, hasn't it?
It has, and thank you guys for listening and following. I know it gets a little bit slower this time of year, but still finding ways for us to stay busy.
All right, David Miller writes in, with the Arizona Cardinals seemingly being in sell mode already and requested trade, what is the plausibility and possibility of a trade for Budda Baker? He would fill an enormous hole as a slot cornerback and sub packages, and Casey could rotate in as a safety in those instances. Reports are a third might be enough to make the deal. Thanks for all your work. Look, I mean, I get where all the narrative is around, the Cardinals and all, and what they might deal, in fire sale off or whatnot. I'll tell you this, Budda is due a base salary in 2023 of a hair over $13 million. He is under contract right now for the 2024 season at $14.2 million. Weren't there some kind of reports that he wants to be the highest paid safety as well too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my concern. I think on paper, in terms of the interest, I think it kind of it fits, but he wants to get paid. He wants to be the highest paid safety. Pittsburgh's not going to pay him over Minka, and that's kind of where you have to draw the line and say that's not going to happen.
And even though there's always way of massaging things to maybe fit in a $13 million cap number, which is really high for him based on where the Steelers sit right now. I mean, you could obviously restructure. There's always ways to make that stuff happen. I just don't think. And here's the thing: if you did acquire a guy like him, you would have to, unless the Cardinals were going to eat a chunk of that 13 million base salary to get him out the door. Even what was left over of that, if they did eat any of that, he's probably going to want you'd probably have to work out some sort of extension once he did hit the door. Are you going to instantly make him one of the top one or two paid safeties in the NFL? Likely not. Just everything screams the way his contract sits right now, and the way you'd have to manipulate things. It screams that there's absolutely zero way that he'll become a Pittsburgh Steeler this offseason. Learning not to speak in absolutes over the years, I will say there is a 0.000001% chance that would happen.
Someone's going to edit that before you get to the one and just leave the zeros in there. So we gotta make sure we're not, no one's doing that to you.
I had the master file, so but I mean, it's not going to happen.
No, I mean, again, I think financially it could. I mean, if you wanted to do that, if you were hell bent on it, you probably could do that. But again, Pittsburgh has, as you mentioned, kind of this philosophy of there's a hierarchy. The outside guys, not paying the outside guys. Generally speaking, there's exceptions for depending on the room, but again, they're not gonna pay Budda more than what they just paid Minka Fitzpatrick. That's not how Pittsburgh operates.
Right. So I mean, look, it's a great thought. I'd love watching Buddha play. I really do. And he does. He feels like he'd be a guy that could fit in that defense and in that room and all like that. It's just, when you look at the reality of it in the financials and all like that, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, but I thought that question was going to be about Isaiah Simmons, so I was happy to get a different Cardinals trade question in there.
Nick Shuley writes in, Le'Veon Bell's recent interview got me reminiscent of the days of the Killer Bees. I wondered these two things and love your guys' input. Will Le'Veon Bell ever get into the Steelers Hall of Honor? Number two, will AB ever sneak into the Hall of Honor? He says, I know that some folks will focus solely on the stuff that has occurred in these guys' careers that isn't football related. However, it's tough to deny how good these two were, especially AB. Hope you have a great weekend. As always, appreciate the hard work from all the Depot team and everybody does for the listeners. Okay. Le'Veon Bell getting into the Hall of Honor. Man, really talking about both these guys. I mean, AB from a statistical standpoint absolutely could. It feels like a lot of years are going to have to pass. A lot of years. Before that to happen, from a statistical standpoint, for that string of years that he put together, you're talking, well, he says, I don't think he necessarily has let me correct this. He says, will AB ever sneak into the Hall of Fame? I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
The Le'Veon Bell question was the Steelers Hall of Honor. The AB question was the Hall of Fame. I think AB, once again, I think it might take a couple of years, to get. He definitely those string of years are definitely Hall of Fame worthy with AB.
Oh yeah, from an on-field perspective, we were putting this guy in Canton as he was playing his final years in Pittsburgh, and to me there was no debate about that, and there's no arguing the type of player he was on the field. Starting with AB in the Hall of Fame. We'll see. It depends on how these next couple of years go. If he can relatively lay low and be quiet and not be in the news for all the crazy typical AB stuff, which he kind of sort of is right now for the AFL stuff, but it's not that big of a deal based on the AB scale of things, then maybe he will. But I think it's going to be hard, I think, for some of those old school, we'll say, Hall of Fame voters to put aside all the antics that AB has had. I think it's going to take quite a bit of time and quite a bit of just the nonsense to stop, if it ever does, for people to kind of forget about that part of AB and remember how amazing of a football player he was.
He's still in full-blown sideshow mode right now, right?
Yeah, it's not. As of the moment, it's not as bad as it was even a couple months ago. It's the arrest warrants and all that kind of stuff. It's just kind of, the AFL stuff's kind of more self-contained. But yeah, it's if he can just lay low for like 3 years, then he's got a shot.
Right. Does he have that in him, though?
That's a very good question, and I'm not confident that he does. With Bell in the Hall of Honor, I think so. It's going to take time, like a decade probably, just because, generally those players don't get selected immediately. And, right. Bell was only in Pittsburgh for a handful of seasons. It wasn't an incredibly long career, a very good career, but not incredibly long. So, yeah, I think he could get in, but it's going to take some time.
Yeah, it's not unthinkable.
Does AB get the Hall of Honor? Because
obviously, a good question,
statistically,
too.
like he's, no brainer in terms of the worthiness from an on-field perspective. But I think Bell might have a better shot just because AB took so many shots. He takes shots at the Rooneys, man. It's hard to be enshrined into Pittsburgh's own Hall of Honor. So I wonder if like Brown has the better on-field resume than Bell, but I think Bell might have the better chance overall still.
I think both of them have. I'll leave it at this. I think both of them have a shot at getting in the Hall of Honor. I just think it's going to be many, many years from now.
Who has a better chance to get in, or at least get in first in the Hall of Honor, Bell or AB?
I think Bell right now.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But even so, we're talking, I think, at least 5 years, if not much longer than that.
Yeah, I think probably within a decade might be the time where that conversation occurs.
Mark Urbaniak, right, saying, hi, Dave and Alex, keep up the great work. You guys make even the slowest times of year fun and exciting. Okay, good. Only wish the podcast were closer to 2 hours during these times. Some would argue with you, Mark. Some like the hour long one, some like the 2 hour long one, some like the 90 minutes. But we try to do this by feel every show, and obviously having an interview like today makes the show run a little bit longer. So you'll probably enjoy this one, Mark. He says, I heard that Darnell Washington slid to us in the third round because of possible knee issues. Why don't NFL players wear knee braces more? Seems like they might give the players with knee issues more confidence, especially in the trenches or blocking tight ends where they aren't running around as much. Well, there are offensive linemen still in the NFL that wear braces for starters.
A lot of them do. It's rare to see somebody who doesn't. I was watching somebody, I forget what prospect it was, but he had nothing. I mean, I don't know if he had gloves on. Like, he just was out there just, totally old school. And I kind of like that. But yeah, a lot of guys wear braces today.
As far as Darnell and possibly needing to wear a knee brace right now and all like that, I mean, that's one of those above my pay grade questions, I think, overall. I mean, we don't even know how hampered he is at this point. I mean, obviously, I think Dr. Mel did a great job of researching the injury history related to him. And, are there going to be concerns about Darnell Washington? And even if he came out of college with perfect knees, just because of his size and how NFL players are probably going to have to get him down to the ground, you're probably going to have concern about his knees moving forward here. I don't know how to, provide any kind of insight on this worth using. Maybe reach out to Dr. Mel on Twitter or whatnot and ask about Darnell Washington and a knee brace. To me, it would, when it comes to a guy that does have to be used down the field, it would seem like that would, offer up some sort of limitation.
Yeah, I think there's practical reasons why you don't, from a mobility standpoint, comfort standpoint, and you kind of touched on this. Does the guy even need one? I think his concerns are a bit more long term. It's not like he's coming off a torn ACL or he's had a surgery or two, but nothing recent. So does wearing a knee brace help you if there's like long term concerns over your knee? Probably not that much. And given the downsides, maybe some of the mobility and the clunkiness of it, it probably doesn't make a lot of sense for him to even wear it.
Let's see. Dan Hedrick, right, saying, Dave and Alex, just curious what your predictions are for the yearly camp darling. He says, mine is maybe Monty Pottebaum, aka Monte Powerbomb, as I've heard a few people use lately. Maybe possibly Hakeem Butler. Also curious your thoughts on the intro outro music for your podcast. I don't know where he's going with the intro outro music. About that, I don't know. Was Dan the one that sent that created it for us? I don't remember how that all came about, but somebody created that for us there. Let's see, Camp Darling. Ways away from that right now. I of all. There are a couple of the undrafted free agents that I think are going to be fun to watch. I think Monty's definitely one of those. I think, and you wrote about David Perales yesterday. I think he's a guy that could be fun to watch. I mean, this wasn't a big class, overall. We've talked a lot about Hakeem Butler and the pros and cons related to him. It does kind of feel like Hakeem's going to need a little bit of help. To me, I don't think it's unthinkable to think that Hakeem could make the 53-man roster, but it does feel like he's going to have to be dead solid perfect and have some special team attributes to help him make it here.
Or at least make some noise. Camp Darlings don't always make the team, but sometimes they just earn that summer buzz for, some span of time, make the practice squad. And Butler, with the size profile, matched up against maybe some undrafted or, lower level type guys in camp, in a practice, in a game, I think can make some plays. Yeah, Perales is the name I mentioned because Pittsburgh always seems to have a guy at the edge rush position that's earning buzz, whether that's Tuzar Skipper, Ola Adaney, Jameer Jones, even if those guys don't necessarily have tremendous Steelers regular season NFL careers. They earned that buzz. Perales, productive guy, hampered by an ankle injury in the pre-jet process, why he ran so slow, but still had a good 3-cone time. And there was, again, that really good college production overall. Other names to think about, some secondary guys. I think Duke Dawson can make some plays. Pedigree guy, Kenny Robinson, future contract. I think he could have, a successful summer, but we'll see. I mean, it's the fun of camp.
I sure wish 4 preseason games still existed. I really
You
do.
both.
And I know that apologies to the NFLPA and all like that, but man, it just seems like to give these guys. I bet these younger kids would vote for one more game, so they could show their stuff. I think the thing about Monty is, look, I mean, the fullback stuff coming out of Iowa was really impressive there. He'll obviously would have to do a great job of cracking some skulls that way the rest of the summer. What can this guy do on special teams? Could this guy be a 10 special teams tackle a season guy? Could he be a young Derek Watt in when it comes to that kind of stuff there? So to make the 53-man roster, he's not going to make it just as a pure fullback. He's going to have to make it as a pure fullback / special teams guy there. And it sounds like he has the spiritual makeup to do that, if you will there. So he'll be fun to watch. Hakeem will be fun to watch. Bird, if he gets any opportunities to return some stuff, there's always the Stephon Logan path that way there. So, and I think you hit on a couple of the rest of the names to watch there.
Yeah, I mean, Pottebaum, because he's Monty the Mullet, he's going to earn some fans. There's going to probably be one great lead block that he has that gets people's attention. But I would say his primary path to making it is through special teams. As Rosie Nix's primary path was special teams, the fullback stuff is more secondary. So you can't rule it out. It's going to take some doing based on roster construction. But yeah, I mean, he'll have his fans for sure.
Let me tell you, if he goes down there during the preseason and blocks a punt or separates a few guys from the football on a tackle, I can envision Mike Tomlin giving that speech and showing some Rosie Nix tape during the process.
Yeah, and Camp Darling does not have to mean that you make the 53. You might be on the practice squad for a bit and then work your way up. So, there's opportunities for Pottebaum, even if it isn't necessarily 53-man out of the gate.
All right, Sim Football Critic writes in, thanks for all the work you guys put in on a daily basis. Truly appreciated. By far the best in the business. By the time you see this, you may have already discussed this. Just in case you didn't, here's my question. With Quan Alexander not being signed and Marcus Golden signing as the third edge, is there a real possibility of Nick Herbig moving inside? He says, I know Mark Robinson is getting some first-team reps while Holcomb is out, but who's behind Robinson? Clearly, the Steelers are looking to add depth at the position. So I'm wondering if they will test the waters with Herbig if they are unable to sign Quan Alexander. Look, I mean, Quan is still unsigned. I know he posted a video on Twitter, I think in Jets gear or whatnot, still the other day there. Who knows what's going to happen with Quan? We just don't have the insight on that. As far as Nick Herbig, I mean, who knows how that's going to go? It does seem, though, that they are geared to give him every chance imaginable to play on the outside, at least as we go through the remainder of the summer. So there doesn't seem to be any, and we don't know, we're not there, and there's been very little reported kind of about Nick Herbig overall. But I mean, it feels like he's going to get every opportunity to show what he can be as an edge throughout the rest of this summer. And then if any move maybe did happen, it would probably be on into next summer or something like that would be my guess. I don't know. But, and we just talked about, the potential needs still. Who knows how this is going to shape out and who might be added or moved in that room moving forward.
Right. We'll see. I understand the thought there, Sim, and good to hear from you. Appreciate you sending in the question, with Golden being there. But I think they're gonna start probably Herbig as an outside linebacker, let him work there before they start moving him around too much. You don't want to put too much on this guy's plate, overload him as a rookie, get him comfortable one spot, and then maybe you explore more in training camp to move him around a little bit. I think that's generally how Pittsburgh works. So you guys know my thoughts there. I think he ultimately is best off moving to an off-ball position. I mean, Omar Khan, Andy Weidel did mention that at least even after Denzel Martin said he was going to be an outside guy. So we'll see. But I think, as most rookies go, they're going to start in one position, get comfortable, get a baseline foundation of the defense, of the playbook, and then you can start adding more as they start to progress.
Look, they obviously had enough interest in Quan to bring him in, right? So there is that. But when you look at what Marcus Golden signed for, and I know Golden's a little bit older and all like that, but it would feel like if Quan Alexander does become a Steeler, it would probably be because let me tell you, if I'm Marcus Golden, and I know he's an outside guy and Quan's the inside and inside guy, but if Alexander comes in and gets signed for more than what Golden signed for, I would imagine Marcus will be, I don't know if he wears readers like I do, but probably going to be looking up over the top of those things.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just totally random. I'm getting this information here on the fly, just reading a tweet. Apparently, and I'm probably beating a dead horse here, so I apologize. Washington tried to trade up with New England on draft night to 14, but the Patriots wanted a third rounder, and Washington would only do a fourth. But then, of course, Pittsburgh gave up a fourth. So this trade stuff will never, ever stop being talked about, I guess. But some behind-the-scenes stuff from Washington coming out that's a little interesting and how that relates to New England. Now,
did Washington pick their fourth-round pick was later than the Steelers?
Probably not. Washington sat at one spot ahead. I mean, they sat at 16.
But I don't know if they dealt or had.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know where they were at for sure. But
I mean, because Belichick. Well, put it to you this way. I mean, Belichick would have took the higher pick if.
Right. Yeah. And apparently, the Pats were initially asking for a third. I'd have to see what Washington's fourth round pick was. Maybe it was later, and maybe that's what ended up happening there. But just seeing a behind the scenes look of the Commanders draft.
And I haven't. This is you're giving me.
Yeah, I can send it to you.
New news here, but no. My initial thought was if all things being equal and the deal ended up being for a fourth round pick, there's no way that Belichick turns down the down the higher of the two.
Mm-hmm. Let me try to look it up here. Fourth round pick. Right. And again, there's so many trades that it can be hard to keep up with. Pittsburgh sent, what did they send? What pick number was that? 120?
I'm going to have to I'm
trying to think. Yeah, this, and I know, again, this is all, doesn't really matter anymore. Picks are in, picks are made, or focus on the players' careers. But yeah, it was, where did Herbig go? Where did Nick Herbig? Yeah, it was 120 they sent to New England. Washington had a pick at 118. I don't know if they had any other fourth round picks. I'm not seeing anything later in the fourth round. So, I mean, it's a 2-pick difference. And I don't know if Washington even ever formally offered that fourth rounder, to be fair. They may have declined that opportunity. So New England apparently asking for a third originally. My guess is no one would do that, and so they settled for the Steelers' fourth round pick.
And where is that report coming out of?
This is from Ari Miroff, the My Sports Update, but it's the Commanders have posted their behind the scenes.
Okay,
I think it's a Commanders based episode, or maybe it's a Patriots based one of the two.
All right, well, that'll be interesting to dive. I just. If indeed Washington was willing to give a fourth, it's hard to imagine the Patriots turning down maybe they did. Maybe there are other reasons we don't know. I don't know.
I don't know for sure if Washington even offered the fourth as of right now. So they may not have offered the fourth. It was just New England was asking for the third.
Okay. All right. Okay. I think we got through all of his questionnaire. So I think that's all we have here. So we can start wrapping up. Anything else to add? Anything else coming in?
No, we'll come back on Monday and see what happened. Might be a quiet weekend, might be a busy weekend. Who the heck knows? But fun weekend or fun week overall. And again, really excited for this Mark Gorsuch interview for you guys to listen to. Want to get your feedback. I think it's a tremendous conversation and appreciate how open and forthright Gorsuch was with his time.
Absolutely. I agree. All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button upper right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button upper right navigational bar. Until Monday, have a safe and blessed weekend. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.